Would you look at that? It is a chalky fish indeed. Welcome to this Champagne Rugby Podcast, coming to you from the Export Beer Garden studio, and it's been a bit of a big old week for rugby enthusiasts in this particular island nation that we call New Zealand. For us particularly, my name is Tony Lyall. I'm joined by Manaia Stewart. Manaia, how the fuck are you?
Look, I have raked over the coals for, 4 days now. I'm still not over it.
Yep.
I'm still not over it. I'm still disappointed just in the way the game went. And I know we always say this, but I do feel like even if we won that one, I'd still be pretty upset at the way the game went.
Yeah, I strongly disagree. I think if we won it, I would be swinging from the rooftops. I'd have an absolute head full probably still, and I'd be really celebrating that win and saying it was probably the best game of rugby ever played.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, and I don't want to spoiler alert, I mean, if you don't know the score of the game and you're listening to this podcast, you might want to go to the doctor because you've got something aggressively wrong with you, or you've stumbled into a really weird part of Spotify. But yes, the All Blacks losing by 1 point in the Rugby World Cup final to the Springboks. And it is a game that has been picked apart and discussed about 1 million times already, but I reckon we could give it a crack.
Let's do it again.
Well, the big thing that everyone was talking about, apart from the game, it was sort of ushered in this new age of the TMO, the referee's input on the game. And I just want to start by saying, you know what? Sometimes you just got to cop it. You've just got to cop it and say all the calls that went on, pretty arguable that they're all fine. And that if we'd kicked a final penalty, we'd probably all be pretty quiet about it. So I think maybe just as a bunch of sports fans in New Zealand, we just need to go, oh, okay, it hurts, it sucks, and we're looking for somewhere to push that aggression, that feeling.
Yeah.
But maybe we could just, internalize it, push it deep down and just, let it rage out and sort of 30 years' time punch a hole in the drywall.
Yeah. Look, I don't mind that as someone who generally adopts that as my method of dealing with stress in my own personal life. But I think, and I've been saying this all week, like if that's the one, because a lot of people, that's the one game of sport rugby union that they're going to watch this year.
Yeah. And
particularly leagueies. And so now for the next year, we have to listen to our friends that only watch league just be like, I watched that grand final of yours, wasn't impressed.
Yeah, and this makes me furious. This attitude that people have where they're like, oh, well, if new people were watching the game, we're not going to get them to love the game of rugby union by watching that game. And you're like, hey, well, fuck, if you're only going to watch one game of a sport and then decide if that's how you're going to watch it from time, maybe this isn't the sport for you. Yeah. Maybe you should go back to doing whatever it was you were watching beforehand.
Yeah.
Like, surely you can accept that some sports have games which are crackers, and some sports, especially World Cup finals. I don't remember a World Cup final that has been a miraculous display of rugby.
No.
Out of all the ones I've watched,
right.
They've always been tight, taut affairs where I think this is the first time a team's ever scored a try against the Springboks in a Rugby World Cup final.
Maybe, yeah.
Like we won a Rugby World Cup final 7 points to 8. They're not glamorous.
Sorry, not to distract you. Bill Bailey's just taking a phone call and drinking a coffee outside
there
the
is
studio.
Bill Bailey drinking a coffee and having a phone call. Is it Bill Bailey or is it just a maniac?
No, that is.
Oh, Bill
genuinely
Bailey.
Bill Bailey.
This is amazing scenes. I've never done a podcast while Bill Bailey sort of gazed at us through a shade of a window before.
We need to include him in the notes for this show. Special guest Bill Bailey.
Yeah, special guest Bill Bailey. I'll just try to get Bill. Any comment on the rugby?
Soundproof windows, I think.
Oh, the soundproof windows? Studio, yeah.
He looks like he's furious with the TMO, though. I can see it in his eyes.
He's absolutely ripping into the cell phone. He's actually also holding it like a phone, which I always find interesting. You don't often see, I think young people would tend to chuck in a headphone and talk that way.
Oh, yeah.
He's got it full up to his ear.
I half expected him to be a speakerphone kind of guy.
Yeah, no, a sort of boomer at the supermarket just having a conversation on full speaker that everyone can hear.
Yeah, that actually looks like a radio interview, what he's doing there, because he's pacing and he's delivering some sort of monologue.
I mean, he's literally at the radio. We broadcast out of the Export Beer Garden studio here at the ACC. Radio Hodaki's just next door. ZM. They're all here. He just needs to walk through one door and he can walk into the studio.
He's so close.
He's like, yeah, I just can't find it. Like, can we just do it on the phone? In his defense, he probably is still steamed from the weekend.
Yeah, 100%.
And I imagine you were coming in pretty hot. How was the weekend for you? I know you did the commentary in the morning. Talk us through it.
So all-nighter from 6 o'clock the night before, we watched the Black Caps take on Australia in what a lot of people are calling a meaningless pool game at the Cricket World Cup. It was a hell of a game. It was the highest unsuccessful successful run chase at a Cricket World Cup ever, which is worst case scenario when you're pulling an all-nighter to watch every ball of a ODI and for your team to still lose.
Yep, feel it.
And then we rolled straight into the rugby commentary, which I've got to be honest, there's no quicker way to wake yourself up than watching a World Cup final.
Yeah. It is like a stiff cup of coffee and an uppercut.
Yeah, big time. And then I rolled into sweatshop, still in the track pants I wore from the night before, and Crocs, and drowned my sorrows. And there were a lot of people at the sweatshop who were in the same boat as I was that didn't think they would be as affected by the loss as they were.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Yeah, a lot of people who were just like, oh, look, I didn't think I'd give a shit, but I'm here and I'm actually really gutted that that's the next 4 years of my life.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said for that feeling as well. And that just shows how passionate people are. When people are like, oh, rugby's dead and all that. You're like, it really isn't. Like this loss has affected a lot of people. Everyone is super bummed. And we're only bummed because we care, which is a good sign for New Zealand rugby as a whole. We're wanting to see it improve. I think overall, you'd say like maybe we were probably pretty lucky to get to the final. It's not that we didn't deserve to, but we had some things go our way.
Yeah.
That amazing win against Ireland, the main one, kind of maybe the only one.
Yeah.
And then the draw kind of went our way as well. And so if we had got that, it would have been a real bonus.
Yeah.
I think we'll look back at it as like the one that got away for sure. But I think we'll also, we do have a little bit of work to do.
Yeah, like I think if this time last year you told us we would make the grand final and lose by 1 point to South Africa, we'd be like, okay, we'll take that.
You would take it. You would have
100%.
taken it right when it seemed like a shambles and everyone was saying, oh, we should murder Fozzie.
To be honest, you probably would have taken that right up until kickoff of the final.
Yeah. It still hurts.
It does, but yeah. And also, it's a good point that you raised because the Kiwis in the Rugby League World Cup earlier this year, they came third or fourth. I'm sure there was a third or fourth playoff. I didn't even watch it. And you're right. Nobody was upset. Nobody was saying rugby league's dead in this country. The only reason people are so fired up about it is because they actually give a shit. And they want to, because rugby's not dead. It's still the backbone of our country.
It really is. And people still love it. And I mean, look at the amazing characters that have come through the sport that we know and love who are leaving after this game. I thought I was really affected by that at the time. Aaron Smith, my favourite player, he runs off at the end, halfway through the game, surprisingly early, I will say.
Yeah.
But, good to give Finlay Christie a good run. And that's the last time we'll see him in a black jersey. Sam Whitelock, the same. Brodie Retallick, the same.
Yeah.
We've got other players who, I mean, I'm sure I'm missing one of the big four who are leaving there.
Whitelock, did you say?
Yeah. And then there's, Shannon Frizzell and Lester Whanganuku who, I mean, they're like 23 years old. They could probably come back.
Yeah.
But, there's a lot of turnover from this game, and it's going to be a vastly different team in 12 months' time than this time. And I think that was like an extra layer of sadness to not be able to give those guys a bit of a see you later.
Yeah, definitely. But the silver lining of that is today, as at time of recording this podcast, is Razor's first day on the job.
Yeah.
Ian Foster is officially unemployed.
Oh, he'll still be in the bender though, won't he? He'll still be
100%.
Absolutely just obliterated somewhere in a chateau in France. They will have holed up the whole team and support staff, and they just will be going bananas.
100%. I'd like to think so at least. But I think it leaves New Zealand rugby, particularly the All Blacks, in a really interesting position where Razor's quite an experimental coach, and now he's almost got clear deck and a runway to the 2027 World Cup, which, to be honest, I'd rather win that one. It's over in Australia.
Yeah.
Not that I just get to pick and choose which ones we win. But it's quite an exciting sort of start to his All Blacks era, with all these dudes gone, new guys coming through, and a chance to put his stamp on there without all of the expectation and, God, if you don't win every single game, it's a very different expectation, I think, on this All Blacks team going forward.
Yeah, and it is a really crazy clear out, like even for guys who might come back and play again, but who are leaving, the next couple of years are going to be super beer. Like, we've got Richie Mo'unga, he'll be gone. We've got Bodie Barrett, he'll be gone.
Yeah.
And these guys very well may come back, but it's going to be such a youthful team. Maybe Damien McKenzie will be the first choice 10. It's hard to say. I mean, halfback seems pretty bloody wide open at this stage. I mean,
a lot of candidates.
Sam Cane's signed on till 2025, but will he still be around in the All Blacks jersey? I mean, God, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
To be fair, one of the big talking points of the game, a couple of cards. Shannon Frizzell, 2.5 minutes in, deciding to do a bit of a Manu bomb on.
Yeah, kind of. Bongi and Manambi.
Yeah, that is just a. It was a tough yellow card, but it's one of those ones where you're like, if that had happened to us, you would be like, get him off, there will be blood.
Yeah, I mean, Darcy Swain did something similar to Quinn Tupaia, like a a year, 2 years ago now.
Yeah, this one seemed a lot more intentional from memory.
That's exactly right. And I think that is sort of the only thing that you could compare it to. This one was incidental, 10 minutes in the bin. In a World Cup final for me, no. And I've been saying this for years now, we got to get away from removing people from the game as our first punishment.
Yeah.
There's got to be other ways to punish players for those kind of things, because you're punishing the fans. And I don't think anyone wanted to see the look on Sam Cane's face when he got yellow carded.
Yeah, he put a big old-fashioned high shot on, and it has to be said, that is a letter of the law as it stands now. That's a red card. He's been standing up straight and shouldered a guy right in the mush, but it does seem brutal to be a red card and have it for the rest of the game. I think we can all agree that cards have become more prominent with the rule changes.
Oh, it's like Yu-Gi-Oh now.
It really is. There's a blue eyes white dragon every second game, and they haven't changed the punishment to match the frequency of the card. So when they invented the cards, they were like, hey, there's going to be one red card, maybe a year, maybe not even in a whole year.
And what they thought was, if someone intentionally hits you right in the head on purpose, or it's for violent acts like punching someone, or
even
stomping on someone.
Fine. That's
that's
I don't know what you would have had to. I watched some old games recently. I watched some old sort of 1987 All Blacks games, and I genuinely was like, I don't know what you might have to stab a man in the heart to get a red card. There was fist fights, there was late hits, there was rucking, stomping on the head, and the referee would be like, hey, you bloody calm it down.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Why can't we get back to that? Why can't there be
I
a little
wouldn't
bit
mind seeing a little bit of just, hey, guys, this is a bit uncool what you're doing now.
Yeah, I don't understand. Yeah, there needs to be some sort of change around. There also needs to be a greater incentive. I know I'm bouncing around a little bit here, but there needs to be a greater incentive for scoring tries. We can't have all these games decided without tries being scored. That is literally the point of the game.
I hear you, but I do disagree, because there is an incentive for scoring tries, which is bonus points in the pool play. So that's fine. So you're wanting to get those so you can get through. But then in a final, I genuinely don't care how a team wins in a final as long as you win. It doesn't matter. I genuinely don't think, because then you're encouraging a style of play, and then you're encouraging a style of coaching, and I don't think that should be something that any sort of there should be different tactics. I love the idea that the All Blacks come up against South Africa, the All Blacks silky skills in theory, trying to score tries from wide, while the South Africa, because then that's like two different styles of play coming up against who has the better strategy. That's where the chess comes into it.
But I think whatever the rule set is, you're always going to be, dictating the gameplay to a degree. And I think that if you change the scoring system to where maybe tries are still 5, penalties are 2, perhaps, then that way it just means if you score a try, you're more than 2 penalties away from your opponent.
Yeah, it does seem pretty wild that if you score out wide, it is only 2 points more, which is the same as a conversion away from a penalty.
That's right, I was trying to think of other ways, like, do we do away with the posts altogether? Do we change this? Do we change that? Are there more points for scoring under the sticks? Which essentially is now, because, if you score right in front of the post, you're going to hit the conversion.
I was thinking maybe instead of a red card, the referee just has a small can of mace or bear spray, and he'll give you just a quick squirt in the eye, and that basically limits your vision. And we could scientifically prove this. So 10 minutes of bear spray play, and so you can't really see anything, but you're still on, but you're kind of incapacitated. You're running around, you've been bear sprayed, so it's sore, and then that does wear off. And after 10 minutes, maybe you get a glass of milk in the face, and so you're good to go. Something like that, where you're still on, but you're just... Or maybe you tape all your fingers up, or the ref gets to kick you right in the nuts. Something like that.
So my idea that I've had for a while is the Donald Duck card, where you get to play on, but you got to take your pants off.
Yep.
So you just twig and berries out, and you're still playing, but you get internationally shamed.
Yeah, well, old Joey Manu played skins for a while in the Kiwis game at Eden Park, and he played pretty well.
Well, that's an advantage, because you're now trying to catch a greased pig. Because
and it is an advantage because there's ladies in the crowd slipping off their seats.
Yeah, I saw someone tweet out, can Joey Manu put his shirt back on, because people keep asking me if we're related.
Yeah, that tracks.
But yeah, I don't know. I like the beer spray because after 10 minutes you can cure it. Maybe snake venom, and you get the anti-venom. After 10 minutes.
Yeah, you're not in any way incapacitated, but you might die.
Yeah, and that's up to you.
That's scary, just knowing that it's in you.
The only problem with the beer spray is that you're probably more likely to give someone a head high after that. If you
Yeah,
can't
it's
see.
true. It could be some really reckless play. And we are talking about this all because Sam Cane was sent off for 65 minutes, I think, in the end. And the big controversy really is Sia Khaleesi, very similar collision in the second half, and was only given a yellow. And the reasoning behind it, it was sort of rugby mumbo jumbo. And I think that's the really hard part for not even casual viewers, for people who watch a lot of rugby. When you hear words like large amount of pressure going through the body, you're like, these are just words in an order. It doesn't make any sense. And I think that's the part that they really need to tweak, where the mitigation needs to just be in pretty clear categories.
Yeah.
And I just think they need to lower the threshold for a red, or do the 20-minute red card, which we already do in a lot of facets of the game anyway.
Even that's like you say, 65 minutes without a Sam Cane.
Yeah.
And, but like if you give away a red card in the last 5 minutes, then the penalty isn't as severe. There's just, I don't know, there's not a lot of other sports where it's like one of your main things is you don't get to play the game anymore.
Yeah, especially for the whole game is crazy, because it's the penalty on the whole team is so much more than anything. I mean, unless you really took a player out, which ironically only got a yellow card with the knee stomp, the knee bum drop. I mean, that means a player can't play the whole game, but then you hit a guy high and he's actually fine.
Yep.
No HIA or anything.
Yeah.
And you can't play the whole game. And then that's the muddy water that I think that World Rugby will have to sort of sift through to clear out some of that murk.
And I know that their big issue is, well, we can't have these head knocks in the game at like different levels, because if people are starting to get head knocks, in age grades and then they come through, that's where all the damage sort of accumulates. But why not like two different rules for the professional game and the amateur game, which we kind of have anyway. And then once you get to the pros, it's like, all right, here's a waiver. Here, do you understand all of the things that could happen to you?
Yeah. You're getting so much money.
Yeah.
And this is a risk. There's that people out there working scaffolding jobs. That's a dangerous job, but they're willing to do it because of the cash.
100%. And I have talked to athletes who have been like, granted this was a league player, it was like, well, my special ability in this world, my God-given talent, is that you can smash me in the head and I can keep playing rugby league for another hour.
Yeah.
If you take that away from me because you don't like watching it, or your mum gets upset when my head gets knocked, like you've now taken away a paycheck from me for what? Like I didn't agree to that. I'm happy for it to happen.
I don't remember there being HIA checks in the movie Gladiator. I don't remember when the guy got hit in the head with a mace. Someone ran out and was like, "Hey, that looked really sore. You actually need to go have 10 minutes in the bin. Off you go."
And while you're doing that, we're going to think about it. And if we think that it was real bad, then you don't get to come back.
That Tiger's mauled a man to death. Tiger, you're off.
Yeah.
You're off.
That's disgusting. And if we want it to be that gladiatorial, write that one down, sport, then we need to bring that kind of, not bring it back, but just, I don't know. When you look at the State of Origin, when you look at the NRL Grand Final, they just swallow the whistle. They sit on it and they're just like, go for it.
Yeah, and I think that there is really something to be learned in that, where the pressure for the refereeing team, and I don't want to talk about the refs the whole time, but the pressure for the refereeing team is they must have had a meeting and they said, listen, guys, we don't want to get anything wrong in this whole game.
Yeah.
And so in making that decision, they litigated every single opportunity, which slows the whole game down and makes the whole game just a bit of a shitter.
And we go,
and that's what they just don't do. They could have refed it like any other game. I don't think there was like maybe any penalties in the second half of one of those semi-finals, and then we've got a game which was just the whistle was blown within an inch of his life.
Yeah.
They got to work on it.
I don't really. You're right. They've clearly sat down and gone, we're going letter of the law on this one, fellas. Whatever happens at the end of this game, you'll be able to say, we'll be able to hang our hats on the fact that as the rules are written down in the book,
exactly,
we enforce them to the letter of the law. But I don't know. I think for a final, it's got to be a bit more the vibe, the Marbo.
The vibe is where it's at.
The spirit of the law.
The vibe is 100% where it is at. And that's why people watch it for. People want to see the game played. And I think both teams would, if, Springboks probably were like, nah, we're fine with it. But I think they'll probably be like, yeah, we wouldn't have minded if there was a little more play, running rugby.
Yeah.
And just ball and play it without having to watch. Because that's the painful thing, is re-watching everything.
Yeah.
The sport is a fast contact sport,
and
it needs to be able to be played as such.
Yeah, I think the most egregious one was that Aaron Smith try that got called back for a knock-on. That was like, I don't know, it was just so far back. And if you didn't get it the first time round, like you can't just keep going back.
Yeah, because then you sort of fall into that territory of, well, something definitely went wrong, and we'll all agree with that. And then later on, something was so it led to something that wouldn't have happening.
Yeah.
Right? But then you're like, well, how far forward are you going to go? Because if there's a scrum in between, you're like,
Yeah.
well, still that. And this is my hypothesis for this one. I think that should have been a penalty try because
Yes.
the knock in the hand caused Ardie Savea to drop the ball, which was a knock on.
Yes.
But then we went out and we scored in the corner.
Yes.
So that infringement, knocking Ardie's hand, stopped a try.
Certain try. And we know it was a certain try because we watched them score it.
So it should have been a penalty try.
Yeah, Ardie Savea, I think, brought that up with the ref as well. He's like, in theory, that's a penalty try because
He did bring it up?
I think he brought it up on one of those. That was the only denied try, wasn't
there
it?
was only
Yeah, and I think he brought that up. No. There was one where
it would have been the knock, the
Rico one where they were playing advantage and he got either bundled into touch or just tackled and they blew up the advantage. I don't know. Anyway.
yeah. I mean, the way that I understand the law of penalty try is that if it stops a try scoring opportunity, then it should be a penalty try, and the infringement stopped the opportunity.
Yeah.
Therefore, penalty try, and we win the World Cup.
I know, and if your defense says, oh yeah, but they were a long way away from where the try was scored, you can't say that they were definitely going to score that. You can, because we saw them do it.
Because Richie Moe absolutely gassed it. And I did think it was very stink on Richie Mo'unga because a lot of people have been a little bit disparaging of him in the All Blacks jersey over the years, kind of saying he never quite reaches those heady heights that he does at the Crusaders. But I think he's been so good as of late. And that run just was so typical Richie Mo'unga of something from nothing, undeniable skill at a classic Aaron Smith support line in his final match. Like, what more could you want? And then it's just all brought back for a line-out infringement. It's a tough fucking pill.
Come back here, you didn't quite do the line-out properly. I have a scorching hot take that I'd like to introduce to you.
Oh, let us hear it.
We need to bin TMOs from rugby altogether.
Yeah.
I think back in the day before we had this technology, before we had like cameras that you could check and whatever, the bloody tennis ball thing where it tells you where it's in or out. Hawkeye.
Hotspot Hawkeye, yeah.
Yeah. Before we had all of that, we were like, wouldn't it be great if the refs never got anything wrong again? Now we've had a decade, 2 decades of it. It's not better. The games aren't any better to watch. I think tennis is really the only one where it genuinely works. Maybe cricket for LBW reviews as well. But I think in rugby, we just do away with the TMO and look, if the refs miss it, the refs miss it. We'll talk about it for the weeks to come. But as it stands, I don't think the game's any better for it, for all the stopping and starting.
There really is something to be said for it because a ref will he might get some wrong, but he'll get some right too. So just law of averages, it'll probably work out. But the idea of being like, we never want to get anything wrong is so great in theory.
Yeah.
But I often think when I'm watching those replays, I'm like, this isn't the game I signed up to watch. Like at all. It's not. This hasn't been part of it in my entire life of watching the game. And now there's this other component, which is such a major component of the viewing experience. You're like, every time that screen popped up and it had a big screen and 2 little screens, sort of a 3 screen in one, and one of the dudes was down in some fucking bunker looking at a million. I was like, I never signed on for this.
No, I don't
I do not consent.
I don't consent to this.
And it's almost like they announce, Wayne Barnes, he's reffing the final. And I'm kind of like, well, who gives a fuck? Who's the TMO? Because he's the real top dog here.
Yeah.
Wayne Barnes is just out there sort of facilitating play and saying crouch, touch, engage. But the other guy actually holds all the power.
Yeah, the TMO Illuminati.
It really is. And the way they deliver the news, and I realise I'm getting fired up here, but the way they deliver the news to the actual referee is so it pushes them in a direction because he's like, I'm going to show you a shot with a clear shoulder to the head now from black 7 to green, whoever the fuck. And he says it that way.
Yeah.
So when Wayne Barnes is watching it, he's thinking, I'm about to see a shoulder to the head.
Yes.
As opposed to, I'm going to show you a potential incident of foul play.
You tell me what you think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he's leading the witness, Your Honor. He's leading the fucking witness. And I will not have it. Not in this court.
Sustained. I think that it's something that we definitely need to get, because like you say, it's not the game that you watch. When you watch rugby, you watch it at full speed. You could slow everything down and find, an error here or there. And also, part of sport is errors, because if every
100%.
athlete played the 100% perfect game every single time, there would be no winners or losers. You'd be locked in a stalemate forever. So why not just embrace that as a great analogy for humans? We're all flawed. None of us are perfect. And so we don't need the robots to come in and tell us what we got right and what we got wrong.
Especially for accidents. Because we've got to admit the game, like you said, high tempo, accidents will happen.
Yeah.
If something is accidental, the punishment shouldn't dictate the game. And also, the referees make accidents as well, but they seem to face no punishment at all.
Yeah.
They'll be back out the very next week. I'd like to see
Post-match press conference.
No, I'd like to see a ref get yellow carded. A ref say,
Yeah.
hey, you made a mistake now.
Yeah.
That impacted the game. Off you go. Yellow card. And then I want to see Jacko Piper walk on. He's like, well, I guess I'm reffing now.
Yeah, that's right.
I would like to see a bin and then here, Wayne Barnes has to go sit in the little naughty chair.
It's been upgraded
Tom
to a
Foley
red.
has to go sit in the fucking little naughty chair.
There will be no referee for the remainder of this fixture because it's been upgraded to red, so the boys are just going to play.
You've got to call your own fouls. Yeah. It's kind of like a pickup game of B-ball.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I think that the cards, though, I was saying this on the commentary. So we got our man red carded. Then they were waiting for Cheslin Colby's review to come through. Was he going to be upgraded to a red card? And if he did, I was saying on the commentary, we should be able to negotiate. All right, Cheslin Colby can come back on if we can have Sam Cane back on.
Yeah, sort of like a Israel-Hamas style negotiation where we get hostages released so that we can utilise them and for the game for the greater good.
Exactly, just like Israel and Hamas.
I think it's a great idea that you can make a little handshake pact and bring them back on for the good of the game.
A treaty.
A treaty, if you will. I like it. It's like when the Anzacs played soccer on Christmas or whatever the fuck that happened in World War II.
That's right. I don't believe
whichever
it.
world it was.
I don't believe it. Whichever world
Maybe it was
was.
the Turkish soldiers and the Anzacs played some
It
football.
seems a lot more like World War I than World War II. I feel like
You've
World
got
War
to
II,
think,
you'd gun them down.
if that did happen on Christmas Day, they raised the white flag and said, hey, should we play some footy? You have to think you'd be going in for a pretty aggressive slide tackle on some of these Turkish blokes, thinking, I'm going to try to maybe rupture an ACL here.
Yeah.
Because tomorrow, when we're fighting, I'm going to see him and be like, oh, that's the ACL guy.
He's gonna try and kill me.
He can't run.
Yeah.
Sitting duck.
What if you knew that one of the guys had the remote that could call in the airstrike? You should be like, go easy on him. Go easy on him.
Just really, we need him to be friendly tomorrow.
Yeah.
We don't want to piss him off.
No.
Let the goal through, in fact. Here you go.
Hey,
Yeah.
see, isn't this fun? You don't need to murder all of us.
Salt Bay, is it? I think it's Turkish.
He is Turkish, yeah.
Yeah, great, nailed it.
I can't even remember what we were talking about before.
Well, we did
that
go
analogy.
quite wide, but I'd also like to say this, and Sam Cane, love you, bro. I reckon imagine
I can't.
the hurt. Like, imagine your biggest mistake. And unless you're listening to this in Piribirimu or somewhere like this, your big mistake is probably not that large, but you probably still think about it all the time, or something that's been a huge disappointment for you in life that hasn't turned out, whether a promotion at work or some sort of studying or something like this. Now imagine that thing is what you've worked for 15, literally your whole life, and you're 35.
Think about all the things that you gave up to be able to chase that.
All the things. And now you're also on TV every single week for this thing in front of a whole country of people who also love the thing that you love, and they're watching you do it. And then you get to the highest point, the dream moment, and this is a redemption moment as well from 2019, where you've already gone through having your biggest disappointment realized, and you get one last chance because realistically you are not going to get another one, and you shit the bed and get sent off with a red card and have to go sit on a plastic chair from Bunnings and watch the game fall away in front of you. Like, that is genuinely devastating to think of.
Why I wanted them to take the camera off him when they were pointing it at him. Like, don't show. When it got upgraded to a red card, like it was grief on Sam Cane's face.
It's grief. It's 100% grief. And you kind of want him to be able to run a little Aaron Brockovich sort of disputes tribunal and go, hey, whoa, hey.
What is undrinkable?
He wants to go in and go, listen, hey, I can't fucking don't bust my house down here to build the airport. What are we doing here? This is it's madness, and it's just, hey, we've said so, and so it is.
It's just so heartbreaking because everybody, and Ian Foster said this straight after the game, is like, whenever people talk about this game, they will talk about Sam Cane getting a red card in the first 10 minutes, and that is his legacy on that game. When otherwise, and I know it's always hard when someone gets carded and it's like, would they have been the difference? Is Sam Cane worth 1 point to the All Blacks? I think he is.
I think his ability to be on the field would have meant it freed up so much more space out wide, which is where we were going to run this team. Obviously the bomb squad, they got all the big boppers running around up the guts. I think if we were able to get it wide a bit more, I mean, Will Jordan, I think he scored like 15 fantasy points. It's not good stuff. He barely featured in the game. This is a guy who's almost man of the tournament before that.
Yeah.
And we were just unable to get it any wider than sort of maybe Geordie Barrett from time to time, just because we were so stretched through the middle.
Yeah, and so just that look on Sam Cane's face is just like the amount of, piss-ups he didn't go to because he had training the next day, the amount of like family engagements that he didn't turn up to, all this different stuff, the amount of times like a broken neck, coming back from a fucking broken neck.
Broken neck!
He broke his fucking neck. And he came back and he did all of that, and then because of some bizarre rule, and we'll sit here and talk about the rule, but at the end of the day, it's like, that's his life now.
So Sam Cane has signed on with New Zealand Rugby and the Chiefs till 2025.
Right.
I still think he is our premier open side flanker.
Yeah.
I know Dalton Popoleti is bringing the heat,
Yeah.
but I don't think he's there yet, and I think we kind of saw that when he did come on. I know he wasn't playing 7 when he came on. He just doesn't, he's not quite there. I think he really will get there. I do believe that he's probably a future All Black captain.
Yeah.
I think he's very, very good, but I think Sam Cane, he's 31 years old now. In 4 years' time, he's going to be 35. Richie McCaw, when he was in 2011, I believe off the top of my head, he was 35. I think there is potential, if everything goes well for Sam Cane, in the next couple of years, till 2015, I think that'll be the real decider, where he says, you know what? We're 2 years away here, baby. I'm going to go again. I'm going to go again. And he goes full Jordan Belfort on the Wolf of Wall Street, and he ain't leaving. He ain't leaving.
I'm not fucking leaving.
And I think that we should be very friendly about that idea, and we should just let him do his thing.
Yep.
Everyone, if you see Sam Cane, when they come back to New Zealand, I mean, you probably won't want it immediately, I imagine, but buy him a beer, look after him, get around all those boys, make them feel welcome and at home. Because these guys, genuinely, they've just gone through their worst day, probably not.
Their worst nightmare.
Their worst nightmare
Yeah.
in a professional setting. And I'm sure in a little while that it'll ease, but we just need to get around them when they get home.
Don't even, when you see Sam Cane, don't even be like, I thought that red card was bullshit. Don't even do that, because that's still triggering to him. Certainly don't go up and tell him that you think he cost us a World Cup, because I know that there's a portion of the country that do behave like that and will.
And people can just be unsubtle, and you go, hey, sucks you got red carded. If that hadn't happened, then we would. Because you're trying to say you're on his side, but really you're just reminding him of how, if that hadn't happened. And I've got confirmation here, in 2015 at the Rugby World Cup, Richie McCaw was 35 years old.
Okay.
So there's
precedent.
This is a like-for-like scenario.
Yeah.
To get Sam Cane, and I'd say that Richie McCaw was in his glory years. I always do regret for him. I regret for him if he didn't grow his hair out long. I always thought that would have been cool.
Really? Richie McCaw? Why?
Well, like just sort of a second stanza. He won in 2011 with the short classic Richie, but then if he grew his hair out, maybe a mo. Sort of like, when Andrew Mertens grew his mutton chops out and he sort of injected a bit more character on the field. So Sam, if you are listening, grow the hair out.
Grow the hair out, mate.
Grow a stash.
I reckon a mullet's definitely on the cards for Sam Cane.
Yeah, I think that would be nice to see.
Yeah, and then have this whole other reinvention of mullet.
I'd love to see it, and I think it would give him a bit of enthusiasm. I'm sure he's probably like, I might just go get some yen.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind some yen.
I wouldn't begrudge him that either. Because there is yen to be had over there too.
Go and do it. And all those guys got Sam Whitelock. He's off to Power to play with his 16 other brothers who play professional rugby.
Yeah.
I think maybe even only one plays there. But you know what I'm trying to say. He's going to go get some French yen, whatever they call it over there.
Yeah, euros.
Euros? Oh, yeah. They're part of the European Union.
Yeah.
Oui. Yeah, who's on their toilet. I get it. Then we've got Brodie Retallick. I think he's off to Japan to go just devastate some poor boy.
Oh, mate.
Who's just decided to play first flight rugby, and he's got to come up against Lurch.
I can't imagine being 60 kilos and then Brodie Retallick walks out onto the rugby field against me.
It's just horrific stuff.
Look at that. I mean, I'm about 110 kilos and it still puts the shits up me.
Yeah, he's such a rig.
Yeah.
He is an absolute huge rig. And Aaron Smith as well, he's going to go get some coin.
That's a clean 110, by the way.
Pardon me? You're a clean 110? Yeah. It looks like it.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm surprised to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm going to lift you up once the podcast finishes and just get your confirmation.
Okay.
We'll go hunt down Bill Bailey, and I'll lift him up and lift you up and see sort of who's Who's the heaviest?
I'd have Bill Dederrites for sure.
Yeah, I think you would.
But yeah, mass exodus out, and a lot of dudes going to make a lot of money, and it's all sitting over there. That's why I don't begrudge guys like Lester Whanganuku, who just wants to go over there and make heaps of money. If you're like, I don't know why we put these ridiculous morals on professional athletes. Like, if your mate was a builder and he's like, oh, I'm going to go over to Aussie and make twice as much money, you wouldn't be like, but what about the love of the game, bro?
Yeah, I would be like, I mean, there is some benefit for me in rugby players staying behind because then they play for the team I love, but, I'm not particularly fond of Fletcher building or anything like that. So I don't know if it's quite a like-for-like analogy, but I know what you mean. I also don't begrudge them for going over and saying, listen, especially for a guy like Lester Whanganuku, who wasn't really in the conversation only a year ago, and then now you're like, oh shit, he probably is the future.
Yeah.
But then we have guys, and I think this is the time when we can look to the future and say, how good is Mark Talia, World Breakthrough Player of the Year? Ardie Savea, World Player of the Year. This is a man who doesn't even really have a position, and he's the best player in the world. It's crazy. Yeah. We've got Cameron Roigard coming out of nowhere this year and looking pretty bloody shit hot. Will Jordan's still about 5 years old.
Scott Barrett was in that world team as well, as was Richie Moe.
And we've got Geordie Barrett, who he must be in the conversation as the best second five going around and just a beast for the team. These are young men.
Yeah.
The two Barrett brothers still out there. They'll be floating around. Bowden Barrett has the option to come back for another World Cup.
Yeah.
I think I imagine he'll be keen. He'll probably be 35 as well.
Yeah.
But, we've got the bones are good. The bones are strong. The mind is with it. And there's other people we haven't even mentioned who didn't really feature in this World Cup, but are still incredible young players like Tupu Vai'i is, I think, certainly a lock of the future. Josh Lord didn't even go over.
Ethan Blackadder didn't play.
I mean, the guys who did as well, you got Tamaiti Williams. Yeah. Incredible stuff. What a debut season from him. Incredible. He was also nominated for that World Breakthrough Player of the Year.
Yep. Amoni Narawa came back after only being over there for a week, didn't play. I think, did he play in one of the first games?
Nah, I think he just shat the bed immediately. And then they got Ethan Blackadder. But there's so many of these Fletcher Newell types, these young dogs who are hungry for meat off the bone. And I'm excited because they're all young, they're all dynamic, they all play that game that we love so much as New Zealand rugby fans. And honestly, it makes me fucking rock hard just thinking about it.
So you're saying 2027's a lock-in?
I think 2027 is a lock-in. And we're going over to Australia, he's been a feature of this podcast. They have said, catch you later, sayonara probably to Eddie Jones after him taking a absolute diarrhea right into the spa pool of Australian rugby after too many Tui Blues.
Yeah.
It's a shocking state of affairs, but they'll rebuild. I don't know if there'll be time enough to rebuild it for the 27 World Cup, but
I ran my conspiracy theory past Lane on the Feature League agenda earlier this week, but my conspiracy theory about Eddie Jones was, because his interview, he said they didn't give me the capital to do what I wanted to do. And I think what he wanted to do was just bring all the NRL players over. Yeah. And I think his plan was it was going to be Nathan Cleary and Angus Crichton and all these dudes, Payne Haas. And they just said, we can't afford that because rugby in Australia has been shit for about 2 decades now. Yeah. So we got no money to do that.
Okay, and we paid you so much to come over. Yeah, he's all over the show. The comments are outrageous. I know he said for Michael Hooper was a bad influence and he wanted people who were obsessed with winning in the team. And the implication was that Michael Hooper wasn't. I'm like, this is a guy who has basically done nothing but lose the whole time. And every time he looks like he's at his father's funeral in those press conferences. Like, he wanted to win. Yeah. That was the only thing he was doing. He hadn't gone overseas. Yeah. He could have gone off and played cruisy rugby for a shit ton.
For the Panasonic Super Wounders or whatever they call it.
The wild buckaroos in the Hokkaido wild buckaroos would have really sorted him out. Yeah. But no, he stuck around. So I thought that was a real kick in the cock. And I also thought he did the classic Eddie Jones thing where he kind of went out by saying, I did have to eat a bit of a shit sandwich, but that will ensure someone else gets to eat caviar, which is still not saying you did a bad job. That's still being like, I'll take it for the team. But you're claiming credit for something that hasn't happened, and you can't lose. Because if nothing bad happens, if anything good happens, which it can't get any worse, then you're like, that was I did that.
He's the Donald Trump of world rugby. He just twists reality and just says that he's never done anything wrong. Everything he does is incredible. Yeah. But when you lay the facts bare, they brought him on. He scuttled the team almost immediately, and the only defence you could mount for that squad that they took over to France was they're building towards 2027.
By emotionally wounding a group of young men to such a degree, making them the laughingstock of their country.
He captained Will Skelton and then didn't play him.
Yeah.
He played Quade Cooper in that last game against New Zealand before the World Cup and then didn't take him to the World Cup.
I think he played 9 games, 2 wins out of 9, or potentially 9 losses, 2 wins.
Yeah.
It was 6 different captains across those 9 games. They didn't beat a single Tier 1 nation across that time. And again, he shat in the sparkle.
He's an embarrassment. They should be ashamed. It was exactly what Rugby Australia did not need at the moment as well. Like, it could not, this last 12 months could not have gone any worse for them.
Yeah.
Because if they had have at least made the semi-finals or, something like that, then they could have been like, oh, well, green shirts, we could turn around, blah, blah, blah. They are now, atrocious.
And this is a country that the Lions are going to next. The Lions
are they actually
queuing up? Yeah, so they're going there in 2025, I believe. I may have the year wrong by a year, but I believe it's the Lions tour and then the Rugby World Cup. So they are poised for 2 of the biggest events in the rugby world, 2.5 years in a row. And they have the worst preparation that money could buy. No coach, a head of rugby, the director, Hamish McLennan, I think his name is, who basically, his call to get Eddie Jones in, awful call.
Yep.
And he said, I don't think it's right for me to leave as well because that would be too much. The last thing we need is more disruption. And they're like, I think the last thing you want to be doing is looking for a new job.
Yeah, well, the next time that I get fired, I'm just like, I agree with you, but I just think it's too disruptive to the team if I was to leave now.
Well, I actually got fired last week and I tried to say, hey, guys, this is too disruptive for Warner Brothers Discovery for me to leave the project. And they said, no, you'll definitely be leaving.
No, not disruptive.
So I just like to say on the record that whatever show does take over the 7 p.m. slot on TV3, I just want to say that I eat a few shit sandwiches here, but it's so other people can eat caviar down the road. So if that show does succeed, that's due to me.
You are the Eddie Jones of
that's due to me.
Light infotainment in New Zealand.
Do not forget it, New Zealand. Whatever happens on TV3, if it is good, it's because of me. And if it's bad, nothing to do with me. I tried my best.
You'll be hosting the project in Japan in a few months.
It'll be called El Proyecto. I think that's probably
for the Spanish-speaking audience.
A non-cancelable way to say that in a Japanese accent. I've always wondered, though, about that. You want to say things in the correct language, right? You want to say correct, like if I'm saying topor, you say topor.
Wait.
But I feel like if you go to Japan, if I say Hokkaido, everyone say, hey, would you mind taking it easy?
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to work that out.
That thing you did with your eyes is probably the problem.
Yeah. That's for I just want to say on the record, I didn't do anything with my eyes. It's all above board. All 100% above board. Scott Robinson.
Yeah.
You said he started.
Yeah.
What do you reckon the first thing he did was?
Went over to Wales to coach the Barbarians.
He did?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Good to see his head's in the right place.
Yeah. That is what he's done, by the way. He's over there in Wales. And
with Eddie Jones?
With Eddie Jones.
Yeah.
And you know who's starting an open side flanker?
Michael Hooper.
Michael Hooper.
I imagine the idea of like, hey Michael, we can go again. And he's like, hey, Eddie, why don't you go fuck yourself forever?
Yeah.
I wonder what the level of relationship is like in that scenario.
I would like to see a bit of pettiness from Hooper. I'm sure he's too professional to let it impact him.
Incredible professionalism from him. I don't know if you saw the Australian broadcast. He was one of the pundits.
Yeah.
And someone very brutally asked him saying, this Australian team's gone bad. Eddie Jones didn't select you. He said that you're not addicted to winning. He said that,
how could you be addicted to winning when you don't win?
You don't have a winning mindset. Said you're a bad influence. What do you have to say about that to Eddie Jones after the campaign? And he basically just said, Eddie's entitled to his opinion. I obviously don't agree with it. But if that's what he thinks, then more power to him. And, I wish him well. And I was like, you've just had the absolute chance to fire a rocket right up Eddie's backside, and he took the high road. And
with no repecktions either. I don't think no one would have been like, oh, geez, that's a bit much, Michael Hooper.
He said, I'm looking forward to playing rugby again next year. He wants to play sevens next year for Australia, which, I imagine he's probably got half an eye on the Olympics.
Yeah.
And I say, God bless him. It's the same thing with Fozzie. Whatever Fozzie does now, I think, let's talk about Fozzie for a second, because I will say there was moments in the not too distant past where I thought to myself, is this the guy who should be the coach of the New Zealand team? And you know,
And he wasn't. We lost. And
he wasn't. We lost, but I think he did pretty well considering the circumstance in which it all happened, how it was pushed through from New Zealand Rugby. I thought they did him pretty dirty, to be honest.
very dirty.
And so he was dealing with a bit of a bum hand.
Yeah.
And I think to get within 1 point of winning a Rugby World Cup final, God bless him, Godspeed, son. And I imagine they love throwing a sir around to All Blacks coaches. It'd probably seem a bit of a dodgy one, really. But
It's a bad precedent to give someone a knighthood for not winning the World Cup, I think.
Sir Steve Hansen, he got one, didn't he?
Hey?
Sir Steve Hansen, he got one, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, but he was there or thereabouts for the. I suppose
so
so
was
was
Fozzie.
Ian Foster. Yeah, okay. Well,
I mean, I was watching. I don't see my name on the Queen's honours list.
yeah, that's a good point.
I did have very little input.
I think that one of the things that we look at league as doing a bad job of, when we look at it from a rugby union perspective, is what's happening today, where players who have 1 year left on their contract from today can sign with another team. So that means that they'll be spending the rest of the season playing for one team, but everyone in the locker room knows they're about to bugger off. And that's bad enough, but when you do what happened to Ian Foster, where it was against his will, it was like, hey, we're sacking you 7 months out from a World Cup, that is just absolutely atrocious, and it's something that I think you could definitely point to and be like, that was less than ideal. Either sack him straight away, he probably would have preferred that, or don't announce it until afterwards. But that circus...
Yeah, and it was a circus, and I think every fan of New Zealand rugby will be glad that whole saga is over.
Yeah.
And now it's the case of, well, we've got to be almost careful of what we wish for, because this is what everyone was saying. We bring in Scott Robinson, he needs to be here. But now that he's here and the new era has started, if things don't go well instantly, I mean, what
are they going to do?
Be calling for next?
Sack him and then bring someone in 7 months later.
Yeah, bring in bloody, I don't know, Jamie Joseph. That'd be pretty good. Although I think Jamie Joseph went on record and said, you couldn't afford me, which I do love. Just a bit of honesty from Jamie Joseph, who has been getting the in.
I'm going to start saying that about jobs that weren't offered to me.
Yeah.
Just be like, look, I know the Lakers are looking for a point guard, but to be honest, they just couldn't afford me.
And if anyone who has any positions open is watching this, you probably can afford me. Get in touch, just at Tony_Lyall on Instagram. Just drop into the DMs. You can probably afford me. It's fine. Pretty unemployed as of January 2023. So, feel free to get in touch. The Lakers, if you're looking.
Yep.
I've seen a bit of basketball. I'd be a pretty bad coach, but maybe I'd be a vibe guy.
Oh, big vibe guy. Yeah. For sure.
Graham Henry didn't coach the nuts and bolts of rugby. He was more of a man manager. I think I'd do that.
Yeah. Be a man manager.
I could be a man manager.
All right. Well, if you're in the hunt for a man manager.
Yeah. Or woman manager.
Well, I don't know.
Gender fluid. It's all legit. It's all man. It's all fine.
Seems problematic to me.
Nah.
All right. Do we draw a line under this World Cup?
I think so. I think when all is said and done, like you said right at the start, a 1 point loss in a final, you got to take your hats off to the boys and say, well done. We bloody love you. We look forward to giving you a firm handshake when you get back.
Yeah.
Maybe having a Bahama Mama over summer. And God bless all the guys that we are losing. I went to the Aaron Smith Memorial Toilets in the Christchurch airports last week and paid my tributes there. Unfortunately, it was to no avail. But there's some big characters that are going, and we'll miss them all, and we love them all.
Yep. And I think that's the end of the Champagne Rugby podcast for another season.
Foreseeable future. It'd be crazy to do another one next week with no footy played. What we talk about, bloody, I feel like we've swung too close to the sun, and the two options we've had about politics so far today. So we'll probably just get ourselves cancelled. But we'll be back next year. I mean, I haven't got that confirmed, but if I say it might happen. Super Rugby time will come again.
February, very early.
February, and we'll be looking forward to seeing the new uniforms from all the teams. I'm pretty excited for this.
Yep.
I've seen some flutters around the Highlanders posters saying, hey, if you could bring back one retro jersey, what would it be?
Oh, you got to go retro.
Got to go retro. They're sort of looking at the classics Temex style, which I would bloody love, or sort of an old training style. So there's a bit of new pep in the Super Rugby step, I think, and I'm excited to see the new jerseys, the new teams, and we'll be back to hopefully discuss all of that. And from all the people who've been on Champagne Rugby podcast this year, we've got James McConey, we've got Sam Smith, probably some other freaks who've been in this production chair who, for me, just don't deserve a mention. And Manaia Stewart on that mic, and for me, Tony Lyall. We appreciate you listening. You're a bunch of good human beings. And, that's us. See you later.
All right.